We are live. Hello, everyone. It's May the 4th. So May the 4th be with you to all our support fibromyalgia friends. It is Star Wars Day. So it is an appropriate day to use that force for greater good. And I'm excited to have our special guest, Katie, with us from painfullyliving.com. She's on the Fibromyalgia Impact Tour. So we're celebrating all the advocates making an impact in their community. And I'm so excited to have Katie with us. I love it when bloggers come and are interviewed because it's so special to me. You guys know how to share your story in a written sense on the blogs. And right now in May, it's so important that we learn to share our stories and help each other and be a better community member. So welcome, Katie, to the Fibromyalgia Impact Tour.
Thank you, Melissa. Thanks for having me. I'm a little nervous because you're right. I can write my story, and really share it that way. I'm not used to talking about it like this, but I really believe in what you're doing and what Support Fibro Group is doing. So I want to be a part, and, hopefully sharing our story will make a difference, I think.
It does. And the stories are really powerful. And I know I've been following your blog and I love all the stuff you're sharing. So we're going to get into more of those details and I'm excited for everyone to learn. I'm also going to share the link too in the comments right now with everyone, and the link will be added to the description. But if you're tuning in live from around, please share and let us know where you're tuning in from. Get shout outs. I'm going to have a great discussion with Katie and learn about her blog, what inspired her, some health tips for fibromyalgia. And again, just getting involved with blogging and how to share your story. There's so many different ways to do it. So let's dig in and learn more about you. So what inspired you to start your blog and even develop the name of it? I know you use a lot of imagery. So can you share with our fibromyalgia warriors what inspired you to get started?
Yeah. So, wow, how do I start? So I've been a teacher for 32 years, or had been a teacher for 32 years. And the summer prior to really not doing well, I started fibromyalgia symptoms, not knowing what it was. And the pain just was kind of roving and whatever. By end of November of 2018, I was beside myself. I would come home from work and just go to bed. I use my weekends to go to bed, that kind of thing. So anyways, I ended up going on long-term leave, December 7th. You can tell this is a very important date for me, 2019. And I didn't step into the classroom in my school again until last Friday. So, but anyways, so luckily I had just some really cool things that happened. I ended up getting into a 10-week fibromyalgia chronic pain management boot camp at in the big city from me, about an hour drive. And in that, it was with a pain psych, a pain med doctor, PT and OT. They worked with me to understand what fibromyalgia is. And I'm a teacher, I'm a learner, I love to research. And I stumbled upon one blog called fedupwithfatigue.com, written by Donna. And I tell you what, that her, if you were just diagnosed section, I read everything. I went through all of that. And that really helped me so much because most of the doctors I work with really don't have a big understanding. Even in that boot camp, I feel now that I know more than, But anyways, so I was a writing workshop teacher, and writing has always been a way for me to kind of digest and understand what I'm thinking and feeling and my experiences. So at first I was writing poetry and I was putting it out on my Facebook, and my friends would say, yeah, keep sharing, kind of thing. And then when I went one session with my pain psych, I was thinking a little bit about blogging because I had been the techie one in my team, and I had kind of started our classroom team blog. So I knew kind of how to go about it. And she had suggested I write more regularly. And so, and then that session, by the way, she shared this one little change of mindset. Up until that point, I was canceling every time, I'd think I'd go, I'd make a commitment, I'd cancel. I was laying in my bed. My granddaughter at the time, she was about 2.5, was living with us, and my son and daughter-in-law, and they'd be playing out in the living room, and I'd be laying in bed, and I'd drag my body out of bed, sit in the chair thinking, okay, I want to be apart, and I couldn't even hold my head up, and I'd go back sad and lay in bed again. And so she was like, right now you are living painfully, you are painfully living. So I'm, as a teacher, I made a visual. So, capital, and this is what she did. She wrote it just like that. And then she said, but you know what, we're going to get you to painfully living. And the idea that I think I had a lot of fear because I still didn't understand what was going on. You think this pain must mean I'm dying, all that kind of thing. And so when she kind of changed my mindset about fully living despite having pain, that was one of my first steps. And so I ended up using that as the title. And then I also ended up, this was after my first year. I don't know if you can see it. It's
a tattoo?
My lotus, yeah. And so after I went through a whole year and I was doing substantially better, I ended up getting this lotus with the idea that every day the lotus comes out of the muck and kind of goes to the sun and is its beautiful self. And I'm trying my best, right? We all have our days, but even when I'm not doing well, to not take that as a negative, that I still can be my best resting or whatever, So that's kind of like my motto and what I put on the blog. And I just kind of now, like if you look at my first blog post, you can see I haven't updated or anything. You can see it was totally me just stating what has happened to me and me trying to figure out why. And now you can see as if you go through the whole thing, that I add in a lot more research and like tips and that, but really it's me figuring it out too. I've always been that kid. I was that nerdy kid that if I can teach my friends and help them do their homework, then I understand it better. That's probably why I became a teacher. So it's kind of that approach I have to my blog as well.
That's amazing. I mean, there's so much to these components here. Like, coming across Donna, who is amazing with her Fed Up with Fatigue, like website and just the blog and the content. I mean, definitely a big shout out and big hugs to her right now, especially. Yeah. But it's that, getting the delivery of information. I think that's why I appreciate all the bloggers so much, because you're delivering new and innovative content. You're reaching people at a relatable level, because you're sharing your experience, and then you're providing these extra tools that we can learn from. And that's why it's so incredible. And I have so much respect for people who can put it down on a paper and write it out and like share and post it in blogs. It's such a unique and a talent for people. So it's cool that you had that component to like know how to like dive in. And I love too the fully living part, so that your friend showed you the visual, you wrote it out, and it became that's fully living. And we talk about how to thrive with fibromyalgia despite everything that's thrown at you.
Right. Yeah. And sometimes, I think, well, people have already talked about brain fog or, all these things, but I do think every person has their own story. And when I started, then after Donna, I started reading all sorts of different stories, and I didn't quite ever see myself fully. I think we all, kind of go, well, I experienced this, I don't experience that, And so I thought, well, if I share mine and, somebody might glean a little something like I have gleaned so much from others, I truly don't think I'd be as well as I am now if I didn't have all that input that I had beyond, like my doctors really didn't have much to give me.
Right. And this is where it's like we're looking for relief sometimes with the providers, but we end up learning from other patients in the community and how we can share. And that's why I always like refer people to other people's blogs and be like, oh,
Mhm.
they have a great blog on this. And I know that you've updated with some great resources too.
Mhm.
I like that you talk about more multimodal like functionality or treatment. So it's not just one thing, but how you had to like find people to work with you as a team and
Yeah.
establishing that healthcare team. And so let's get into a little bit more of that and just some of the, I guess, important pieces or tools and tips. And I'm like so engrossed with some of the recent blogs you've written too. What are your favorite health tools like in the fibromyalgia space?
So first of all, I want everyone to know that I think it's pretty normal that you try everything and anything at first. And I did. And some of them were total gimmicks. And, I'm kind of embarrassed now that I tried them, but oh, wow, I lived and learned. But I think it was for me, all right, so that 10-week boot camp, part of their main focus was education. And I ended up watching a video and then several more after this, but by Dr. Daniel Claw. He's out of U of M. He's a researcher for fibromyalgia. And he talks about how we have this amplified, pain processing system. And that really resonated with me. I came to realize, I never thought about this, but I've lived in fight or flight all my life due to kidhood issues and things. And I got a lot of atta girls for it because like through school, I was the one who always took it to the nth degree. I love school. And then in my work life and everything, I always tried to, take it to the nth degree. So for 53 years, you live in that way. To me, it made sense that I would develop this amplified system kind of thing. Plus I kind of always thought pain was kind of a good thing, and exercising, whatever. So I actually thought it was fine to have chronic pain.
No pain, no gain, right?
Right. So anyways, so I have kind of adopted that mindset that my whole goal is to calm down that nervous system by rewiring the brain. And this is another kind of coincidence. My last 2 years of teaching, we were introduced to this brain plasticity for teaching reading to kids. And so I was already kind of studying about brain plasticity. And then I got the Dr. Daniel Claw's talk, and then I started reading everything about brain plasticity. So with that focus, my first, I think, big change was meditation, which I'm ADD. And I'm not ADHD exactly, but ADD, and my brain was always going. So I thought, no way in heck am I going to be able to do this. But I found this free, mindful based stress release course online through Dave Potter. It's called PaloozMindfulness.com. And it's a free course, and it's so cool. He's trained by the John Kabat-Zinn program that's in Massachusetts, I think. Anyway, so I went through that, and that kind of helped at least get me started. And now I try to do it every day. There's research that shows if you do it 20 to 30 minutes a day, that in 8 weeks you already start shrinking that. What is it? The part of the brain, the fear part. I'm not going to be able to pronounce it, but the little, primitive part of our brain that causes the fear in that. So that's probably one of my big ones. Another huge one, and this is thanks to Donna and also Melissa versus Fibro helped me with this, was getting LDN, low dose naltrexone, which is a off-label prescription. So it's very unique how it works, and it's made a world of difference in my energy and my clear thinking, which was probably what stopped me from working and everything. Not so much the pain. For me, the pain is like this deep toothache all over my body, but it's not like really, like my worst day is maybe a 7. and average, I'm at like a 3, 4 kind of thing. It's not something that stops me, but it's the brain fog and the fatigue that laid me low. And I couldn't function. I couldn't keep up with my 6th graders. I had no humor, all that. Anyways, so the LDN has really helped with that. Meditation also, like when I have brain fog, if I go and meditate for 20 minutes, I use a guided one. Right now I'm using Insight Timer, but that tends to clear my head a little bit afterwards. And sometimes even if I haven't slept, if I do that body scan, I'll feel at least more refreshed. So that's a big one. I love nature. Nature is very revitalizing. And 2-3 years before I got fibromyalgia, we actually moved to a place that used to be a kids' summer camp. So I'm in the kind of the wilderness in Michigan on a little lake. Right behind me, I have 110 acres of woods with paths, that used to be a part of the kids' camp and all that. And my husband and I met at a kids' camp. So like we fell in love with this place right away. So just getting outside and walking around or swimming or kayaking or any of that is really good. Especially I sometimes try to do it mindfully. So like I'm breathing, I'm like really paying attention to my footsteps and what it feels like and all that. And that helps a lot, especially if I'm not doing well. Let's see. Oh, a big one since October. Yeah, October. Actually, I started just before the pandemic and then stopped after 3 sessions because everything was closed. And I restarted it in October, is EMDR therapy. So it's counseling. It's talk. I do talk combination and EMDR reprocessing, which doesn't involve a lot of talking, which when I researched it sounded absolutely insane. It's about, igniting your right and left brain. And I hold these buzzers while I'm thinking of a traumatic event. And I don't know how it works, but I really do think it's chipping away along with the talk therapy. And I don't know, it's making a difference in maybe my reactivity to things. And I think all of this combined is like slowly, real slowly lowering my fight or flight and lowering my, the pain levels and things like that. So those are probably my main ones.
Well, it's great you have so many tools.
Yeah, I've learned a ton. I also do myofascial release, and I just did. Have you heard of John Barnes? So, by the way, I'm a fangirl of Dr. Lipton. So most of what I talk about are things that she's mentioned in her book, and so then I go forth and try them, and I found a lot of them to work for me. And so the myofascial release and I was trained just recently by a John Barnes physical therapist. I could only afford 5 sessions. Insurance doesn't cover it. Yeah. And, then she was so wonderful. And she taught me and gave me my own resources so I can do at least a lot of it at home on myself. So those are my main ones, but I have a ton.
I know. Well, and the great thing too, and just to I know that we've gone through a lot of like health tools and tips and people have a lot of questions, but see, the great thing is you have them all on your blog. So people can go through and like read about it. And I'm going to post the link in the comment section too, because all of this stuff, from LDN and learning about LDN, you have a blog post there. I'm hoping to get Linda to join us for an LDN talk, because I know they have the LDN conference coming up in June. Yes. And then we love Dr. Lipton as well. That's usually when someone asks me like if they're first like diagnosed with fibromyalgia, like you need to go read her book first. Like that's my first reference. Yeah. So
I watched one of her videos and read all her posts, but I hadn't actually gotten the blog or book, and I had thought I knew it. And then I was like, oh no. So I actually read her book in September, and I did not want to go gluten-free. I was like, I'm already dairy-free. I stay away from caffeine. I don't want to do it. And then I did in November, And the fire that's been in my stomach for 10 years after a Nissen procedure for GERD and that is mostly gone. So, yeah.
Oh, that's great to hear.
Yeah.
You know, it's good to hear that there's tools that are successful. And like you said, you just feel like you have to try them all and just go through it. I
Mm-hmm.
know we have some questions here, so let's just take a quick shout out to some of our people, because you have some people from Michigan here as well.
Woo-hoo,
So
Michigan.
shout out to Michelle from Michigan. Robin's joining us. Happy Tuesday. I know we have Lupus Spoons, who's actually going to be joining us on Advocacy Day as well.
Cool.
I love this. Warriors are the best teachers of living this life. So we have the teacher mix, but it's so good when you have teachers actually mixed in too, because you're great at sharing. And we definitely have the Social Butterflies Foundation. Chastity is with us, so shout out to all this. And Joe, welcome. So we'll continue sharing all this stuff, and people have the fascia and lymphatic as their tools.
Yes.
But someone mentioned tapping. So there's so much that we can talk about, and that's what it's definitely fun. And like I said, go check out Katie's blog if you have questions, because I know I saw stuff. It's hard to find a doctor who prescribes LDN. So I know that you'll have links to you have links to the LDN research trust and stuff like that too. And
yes. Yeah.
And there's resources to find providers.
Actually, tapping was one of the first things that I did, which I tie it into mindfulness and all that. And I remember I was traveling with my husband. He was working, and we were staying in a hotel. So he was working, and I did this whole very emotional, they have a tapping conference, and I did this whole emotional tapping thing led by somebody online. And then I wrote a poem that I didn't even know, that I processed something, through that. So, yeah.
I mean, all of these is just trying to find what works. And it's a challenge to figure out what works for you and trying multiple things. And then, like you mentioned with myofascial release, the affordability cost, but things like tapping, if you can take free courses, or you took a free different meditation courses, or you have apps now, maybe just start with some of the free services and see if you can add those in.
Yeah.
And then go, because I love myofascial release, although I had a luxury of going to see Jamie Lipton up in Portland when we were doing that.
Oh man,
we need it all when we can travel again.
But yeah,
when we travel again, we should just take a bus load of us and spread it out over days. I think he'll be overwhelmed, but definitely
that'd be so cool.
He's the guru of fibromyalgia, myofascial release. It's hard to find someone to replace him anywhere. So
yeah, I just wish, well, that's the thing. I just wish there were so many more training centers and, that kind of thing. So it could get spread out,
I know. And how do we clone the ones that are really good at it and just be I always tell Dr. Lipton, I was we need to figure out how to clone you. Maybe that's what I should focus on.
That'd be awesome.
We translate all of that across, because I mean, even now reading from Stacy here, so she lives in a smaller town, and it's difficult to find those. So without surgery, I guess she's talking about these alternatives. So Stacy, definitely connect with Katie's blog, read up. I mean, this is kind of what we have to do lately, right? As patient advocates, is we have to seem to do our research, and hopefully when we present it to our doctors, they're open-minded. Or we have to just find some providers that are open-minded to this, take classes online, right? And so,
yeah. I mean, that's for the LDN piece. After I watched Dr. Lipton's talks, Donna's and Melissa's, and then I went to the LDN and all that. Then I presented the research, some research to my GP, who never heard of it before, was all right, I'll give you 1 month's, dose and give it a try. And he didn't even know how much to give me. The main research level is 4.5, but I knew that was going to be way too high. And then I had to find the compounding pharmacy and whatever. But then after, my month, and I reported what was going on and how much better I was feeling, he was okay. So, and now he's referring it to his fellow doctors. and patients. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, there's been great results with LDN and fibromyalgia, and even Dr. Jared Younger talks about it. So one thing is like trying to bridge this gap to get that information. So, maybe we could give like a PowerPoint presentation, what you can present to your doctor to like talk about LDN, because we see the neuroinflammation.
I could put something like that together. I'm a teacher. I do that thing. I could do that. I'll try that and put it up on my blog or whatever. So, yeah.
Because I know, like, if you go into a doctor's office, you're like, where did you hear about this? And then you say, oh, a Facebook group. They're probably going to be like, or
yeah.
like,
right. Yeah.
But like, no, it's well researched. Here's the research. There's this organization.
Yeah.
And there's doctors who work and treat, especially in the fibromyalgia space. And then there's some extra research behind it. And we're seeing really, really good results in fibromyalgia and even other autoimmune conditions. Like I did get to attend the LDN conference in Portland one year. So I was amazed to learn about how broadly it can like be helpful with, I mean, it has less side effects than some of the other medications that are FDA
and it's
approved.
out of your system in a couple hours. And then, and what it does is just increase your endorphins and your receptors for the endorphins. So it can really help in a lot of different ways. Yeah.
Well, that's why these conversations are a big fan. Well, when something helps, right?
Yeah.
When something helps,
gives you your life back, or at least in a lot of ways, you're gonna shout it. So,
well, I mean, this ties into like my next question, because one of the biggest things we're talking about on the Fibromyalgia Impact Tour is assessing the needs of the community, like what's missing or what can we improve. And then the second part is how can we work together to make the changes that we need. So what are you noticing that people are like, maybe the frequently asked questions that you need the resources for? Like, what are you noticing?
Yeah. Well, I have a few things that I would like to see. One is just like better, real, more current understanding. I think the convoluted way that the diagnosis for fibromyalgia and the history of it is still lingering big time. And so, a lot of people think that fibro is autoimmune, and it really isn't. I mean, we can have autoimmune on top of it, but the fibro itself is that central sensitization thing going on. And so a lot of people, are addressing it in different ways that, like doctors and things like that I think they don't understand it well enough. I wish there were more doctors like Dr. Lipton and, that understood it and actually could treat it. I'll be honest, I actually emailed U of M. Dr. Claw is just researcher now, but he used to be in charge of their pain clinic. And I emailed the woman who's in charge, who just retired after I emailed her. So she said, I'm going to send your question to Dr. Claw. I'm like, cool. And my question was, can you recommend a doctor who understands fibro in Michigan, anywhere in Michigan? I'll drive. And he said no. And he gave me a name of a doctor in Kentucky.
Ouch.
Dr. Claw. I mean, he's somebody who knows, and so it's so frustrating. Here he's a big researcher. Why isn't there at least a center at U of M? There isn't. So,
well, I mean, we're working on something called Project Echo. And I have to get on top of it. Maybe this is something to get involved with the bloggers on the language to approach providers with. I mean, first, there's the reframing the language. Like, yes. I would love for providers to reframe their language so we go away from this thing like fibromyalgia is a wastebasket diagnosis. It's a diagnosis of exclusion. I mean, just you hear those words, wastebasket, exclusion. I mean, we already feel thrown away. Let's let's get rid of that. But with Project Echo, we're going to be doing medical education. So I'm hoping that helps.
I feel like if they could do what is the really expensive brain scan on each of us, right? There's your diagnosis if they could afford it, but they can't. So I kind of want to be a guinea pig and get my brain scanned,
Well, if you're willing to go to Birmingham, Alabama, so Dr. Jared Young, they're still recruiting for that brain scan. I'm like, now that it's like pandemic is lowering, I've been like really tempted to get on a plane or at least drive to Alabama because they said they still need people for the brain scan.
Are you kidding me? I would seriously consider that. I have to look that up. Maybe, send me his name or something, because I haven't heard of that.
Oh
So,
yeah, that's Dr. Jared Younger's lab. So
okay,
he's on our team as researchers.
okay, all right. All right, writing him down. I'm going to look it up as soon as we're done. Probably some of the bigger things, I believe, and this is tied in with what you're doing and what I was just talking about, is changing that language first at the, NIH and help me out. And
CDC and
yeah, thank you, CDC, because if that's not changed, then training won't be changed. Insurance aren't going to look at things any differently. And, right now, I mean, a lot of research shows that what's not covered by insurance are a lot of the things that help. And that gets really frustrating. And then after that happened, what I'd like to see is centers, that are more like what I went through, but a little more than what I went through, where you have, 10 weeks or whatever with this multidisciplinary team with methods that are proven, with the mindfully based one out in Massachusetts, I think it's 8 weeks, that they do. And, that was never even mentioned in my program. Diet of any kind wasn't mentioned. So anyway, yeah.
well, we don't have the research on things like nutrition and other things which we would need to educate. So, but it's hard because we see it with neurological conditions. So like I know from a work like with Dr. Rolls and like Dr. Bredesen, you see with Alzheimer's and MS, they are doing all kinds of research in different areas. So it's not just exercise and CBT, it's also like nutrition, like other modalities. So we need to start replicating that for fibromyalgia so that the educators can get, or providers can get that information.
Yeah, I was encouraged. So in our fibromyalgia Michigan group, Dr. Claw talked, not this winter, but last, or was it this winter? I can't remember. But he did say that he's going to start looking into food, into diet and fibromyalgia. So that's encouraging.
Well, it's definitely encouraging. And it's just like, so you got the email and then he sent the referral was for Kentucky. So has it changed? Like how long ago was that? And like, how did it change? Are there more providers or was it looking outside like naturopathic doctors maybe, or I don't know.
So no, I mean, so, Dr. Lipton is a functional medicine doctor, and I have found some, just Googling and looking into it in Michigan. The issue is the cost. My insurance won't cover any of it, and I just can't afford it. So I didn't ask him about insurance coverage, but my guess is he gave me the person that he could think of that would be the best in Kentucky, who was affiliated with the hospital. Okay. So the insurance would have covered that person, except for only if I went there, if I go there, which I don't know. I mean, yeah, I guess I could drive the 10 hours or, that kind of thing, but
10 hours?
Yeah, from my house. So
wow, to see a provider.
I Googled it. Yeah, I emailed her because I thought, nowadays with online, maybe, but it's because of licensing, they can't. So even Dr. Lipton, I reached out to her a little bit, but you can't because, she's licensed for that Oregon and not Michigan. So, however, I will say I'm going to be trying something. June 21st is my first appointment. There is a documentary called This Might Hurt. And this doctor, and his name is Dr. Howard Schubner, is in Flint, and he's affiliated with a hospital. So my insurance, so it's going to be like a $40 fee for a 2-hour meeting that I have with him. And then I'll be a part of his program. So that's going to be new. And the documentary kind of shows what his program's about. So I'm hoping for good results through that. I think it'll enhance or fit in with what I'm already doing. So we'll see.
Well,
again,
I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, yeah. So I plan to write about it. I'm not sure if I'll wait until June after my first meeting or like I don't know. But yes, I'm excited about it.
Well, I mean, that's what's so great because then we get to read about it and you're helping so many people who are curious and want to learn more. And it's kind of like we're experimenting on ourselves, doesn't it feel like it? And we have to like share with everyone what helped and just.
Yeah. But I also think I've gotten much better. So I was somebody like when I taught, I didn't take time for myself at all. Like I didn't drink water all day. I would stop and eat a little something, but I'd help kids during lunch, whatever. If a nail got ripped, I'd just tear it off and go forth. I just didn't, take care of myself, and I didn't pay attention to myself at all, and like what I was feeling physically, any of it. So now, like this guinea pig trying things, I've gotten much better just in the 3 years since I was diagnosed and listening and kind of having this intuitive feeling. Like I had this intuitive feeling, not just research, that LDN would work for me. And I had a really rough start, to be honest, because I found out I'm so sensitive to medicine. Some people can start at 4.5. They had me start at 2 milligram, and I was throwing up in bed, dizzy, headache. It was horrible for 3 days. I stopped for 48 hours to clear receptors, and I restarted at 0.25 milligrams. And in 1 year, so this was my 1 year anniversary, I'm up to 3.75 milligrams. It's different for everyone what their sweet spots are. More isn't better necessarily. So anyways, but I knew intuitively to stick with it. Plus encouragement from Donna and Melissa and some other people. So
Well, it's perfect tie into everything because it's like, start slow and build up. And that's why, it's low dose naltrexone.
yeah.
So I think that's the big takeaway too, that they talk about is like, it's finding that right sweet spot and understanding that you may have to start slow, low dose. We do have a lot of people have sensitivities to medication. So, when they start you at those high levels, I mean, and it's okay to talk to your doctor and be like, you know what, I know this is, and actually there is a video from the Mayo Clinic where one of the doctors does talk about sensitivity to medication. I use that and send it out. I pin it in
Yeah.
the YouTube and be
Yeah.
like, okay, so then you can start at a lower dosage, and it may seem absurd sometimes to providers, but it's better than having major side effects to things.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and I think that, the go low and slow goes with almost any, like if you're new to this whole thing, try one thing, go slow with it. I know it's going to get, to me, I was very impatient to feel better. And, I'm sure we all are, but, I was kind of just trying everything at first, and it was not good. You didn't know what was helping or not helping, and mostly nothing was helping initially. So
Well, it's weird because you don't know what's working. That's why I always encourage people to like at least document it. So if you're starting something new, just start a journal or a quick notes or do something in your like phone where you have a notepad of like how you woke up in the morning. How are you feeling starting something new? Are you noticing any like mood changes or any pain changes? So because I can't remember everything. I mean, with some of the brain fog on days. So if you have that document and like listed down, it can be really simple. Just notepad by your bed or like I said, the phone.
mhm. I found an app that I use is called Dailyo, and it's mostly what is that called? Icon emojis. It's mostly emoji kind of thing. So it's pretty easy. You can just click, 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 and then you can add some stuff in. I do pay. You can do the free version, but I ended up doing the pay one because I was adding in like stuff about how much water intake I was having and just everything, I started adding in. So, but that's pretty nice, just having it right there on your phone.
That's a fantastic tool.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, all these tools like help. I see that lupus spoons use the same app. So I love this. See,
Oh,
we're like have a lot in common and we can share with each other.
yep.
And that's and Okay, so I'm so excited you'll be joining us for Advocacy Day on May 11th. And just like building this community has been so fun. I know Elaine connected me to you as well. She talks like with Flower. We all love Elaine, right? So
Yeah.
it's just been so nice. So I'm just glad that we're like working together as a community here.
Yeah, I think the more we do this, and it doesn't have to be like just for fibromyalgia, because we're all, I think those of us with kind of chronic illness kind of thing, we're experiencing a lot of the same, you know, not exact, but the more we come together, we just definitely are stronger. And it's crazy to me how, I don't know, things have worked out. Like with Elaine, I had seen a video of her talking with Dr. Lipton, because I watched all Dr. Lipton's videos. I was like, oh, she's cool, you know, and I agreed with what she was saying. And then later I was, what was it? Oh, I was on LinkedIn. I had this, you know, I hadn't been to my LinkedIn forever as a teacher. I went on there and made an account, but I'd never really been on there. And all of a sudden, Elaine pops up and messages me. I didn't know who she was, you know, or she didn't know who I was. And I'm like, that's the lady I saw in the video. And then we connected, and yeah, so it's just kind of weird how it's all happened.
I mean, she's
And
such a sweetheart, and she has the nature type integration too with her cards and all that.
yeah. And I'm actually in a support circle, and she's a big mentor of mine. So she helps me out a lot.
That's fantastic. And I mean, I love sharing everyone. And like, again, we see how we're connected and we can support each other.
Yeah.
And you mentioned other bloggers that I know we've had Melissa do videos with Brandy before. It's how I connected with Brandy, and being Fibro Mom. She's been the co-founder to all of this. So
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I'm in a group called Fibro Bloggers Directory. And I'm not really sure how I stumbled on all these things, but you know, as you start sharing your stuff out and whatever, you start getting connected. And the person who organized that is Lee Good, and she's in Australia, you know, and I'm making friends in Taiwan, and, you know,
shout out to Carrie. I know we're not great.
and yeah, so I've made so many good friends online, which has helped me tremendously, you know, both with fibromyalgia and during the pandemic, you know, and then we come together, and just recently we put 15 bloggers share their top 3 tips, you know, kind of thing. And yeah, and we're all just sharing out kind of the same post, but you know, it's really cool because we all shared our top 3 go-tos. And I think, you know, what a great resource for somebody who's just figuring it out. So
Oh, it's tremendous resource. And I'm like I said, I'm such a supporter because I got involved with the Chronic Illness Bloggers Network when Julie Ryan, like, you know, I got to meet her from Counting My Spoons, who I had just read constant blogs from, and I got to meet with her in person. And so like, this is super cool. And like, you all are amazing. Like the bloggers, we need to support them. So everyone out there, I know like we may go to some of those other sites, but definitely bloggers who are doing this stuff, please go and support their website, share their content, because it all helps, right? We drive traffic back to your blog and we read all the content and support you.
You know, I really appreciate how you're pulling us together, because that's what you need. You need a spot, right, where people can come, and like a forum, and come together. And what you guys are doing with this, and then the advocacy, you know, I think it's gonna make a big difference. So thank you for what you're doing.
I appreciate that. I'm determined. This is my bucket list, so
Yeah.
I have it down.
Yeah. Awesome.
Well, I know we're closing out our tour, and I wish I could meet you in person. I can't wait. I can't wait. I can't wait to like meet you in person and give you a giant hug.
That's so awesome.
Thank you for joining us on the Fibromyalgia Impact Tour. So before we close out, where can all our fibromyalgia friends connect with you?
Well, so I'm on Twitter and Facebook at Painfully Living or Katie Clark. You know, if you try either one of those, you'll find me. I'm on Pinterest and Instagram. Those are the ones I'm on. And then my blog is painfullyliving.com.
Yep. And check out all those blogs and resources that she has. Just shout out to Lupus Spoon. She'll definitely be connecting with you. And you guys, you never know with Advocacy Day how you might be connected.
Yeah.
Here we're stronger together. Definitely we're in this together. We're stronger together. And then, you know, special thank you for all this beautiful information. So shout out to everyone watching us live. Thank you so much, Katie, again for joining us.
Thank you for having me. This has been great and not as nerve-wracking as I thought it would be. I'm much calmer than I thought I would.
Yay. Okay, then we can ask you to come back then. So definitely, because you have the May awareness blogs, right, that people need to check out. Do you have any other May events that we should know about?
Well, I mean, I'm going to be posting as much as I can, you know, on my socials and what have you.
Okay.
My big post right now is my LDN anniversary. April was my 1 year.
Happy anniversary.
Yeah. And some of my more personal ones, my EMDR one that I just put out. So yeah, those are my big ones. But I'm going to keep sharing as much as I can, just to kind of, you know, keep it alive. I usually have a rule that I have my Painfully Living like Facebook page, but then I have my personal page, and I usually don't bombard my friends and such, you know, with my posts and what have you. But I told them this month I am sharing it on my personal stuff too. So whether they like it or not.
I think it's good. We'll slowly get them into like learning more about fibromyalgia. It's unique when you can share and teach people. So, you know, thank you so much for your time. So thank you everyone for tuning in. So we'll definitely be seeing you on the road. Bye.
Yeah, cool. Bye.